I come at you, you better not duck me, son. You better not duck me, son. I'm telling you.
Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? You know, one of the best things about making videos about Teofimo Lopez, reporting what he says on a weekly basis, you can never say that anything is biased because all I have to do is play clips of what he says on Monday and then what he says on Friday and then what he says the following week and the following week. So for anyone who wants to defend what Teofimo Lopez is doing right now, you should be arguing with Teo. You should be trying to contact him on his social media. You should be debating him on what he just said last week, as opposed to what he's saying today. So now that Ryan Garcia has stopped Luke Campbell and him and Gervonta Tank Davis have agreed to face each other next, that's what the whole boxing world is talking about. So Teofimo, he decides to do his rounds of interviews and come out, give his take on the whole Ryan Garcia wanting to fight Tank Davis. And he also reveals who he wants to fight this year. Now, I'm starting to think that Teo, he doesn't realize that the things that he just said weeks prior is actually recorded. People can literally go back and listen to what he just said the other day or the other week. I'm starting to think the Lopez family, they don't understand that concept. So let's go ahead once again and put together the chain of comments that him and his father have made and end it with what he just said in this most recent interview.
Pick one fight. What is the mega fight in the sport? Teofimo Lopez versus who in a couple of years or next year?
I don't even know. Devin Haney? I would say Devin Haney.
Who would you like to fight at? Obviously some attractive options there at lightweight. Who would you like to fight the most?
I don't mind being the two-time email world champion. You know what I mean? That'll be fine. You know, I know a lot of people are already saying that this is not for Undisputed because of that. Whatever with Mauricio Suleiman and whatever he did, but I just got a belt that said franchise world champion.
The franchise is not a belt. It's not a championship. The franchise is not a belt. It's not a championship.
So from the WBC, I can fight those guys. I don't mind it.
Do you think Haney would fight you next, assuming he beats Gamboa?
I don't care. I don't think any of these guys will step up to the plate. And if they do, they better be ready. Because I don't fear no man. I told you guys this. I don't care. I'm in there to fight. And if you're not there to fight with me, you're going to lose.
Thank
you.
Like
Loma. Like, if I take that fight, it's just for bragging rights, just to shut him up and destroy his career. That's really what it is. I don't care. That's the type of person I am. I ain't here to... I'm not here to see another fighter build up his career. If he wants to take that step and fight, I'm more than happy to just take him out that route of what everybody's talking about, saying the next Floyd Mayweather and stuff like that. Yeah, get out of here with that bullshit.
Teofimo Lopez is the one with the rest of the belt, so that's the main fight that I want to make happen.
But when it comes to Devin, I got to think about it. Devin has not a long way. He got like maybe 3 to 5 years to get to that point to where we can make that fight happen. 3 to 5 years to where we can make that fight happen.
What are we going to do?
We taking the world and everything.
What are we going to do?
I
going to fight Cambosis?
I'll fight all you guys. That's what they're saying right now. I'll take over the zone.
Give us 10 million. We fight Devin Haney.
You got to give me a percentage.
Bob's watching there. Look.
Give us 10 million, we fight Devin tomorrow.
How much?
10 million.
Okay.
If we get a good fight with Gumbosis up in Australia, get 65,000 people, man, I'm all in for it, you know what I'm saying? A fight with Devin Haney, a fight with Gervonta Davis, a fight with Shakur, or anybody of those guys don't make no sense right now. You know, these guys got to make up their resumes. They got to start fighting bigger guys, you know.
So guys, we just gonna keep adding to this compilation every single time the TOs do a new interview. Now let's get into what Teofimo Lopez Jr. just recently said. He did a round of interviews, but I'm gonna play a clip of what he said right here. Check it out.
You know, our goal is to shoot for 3 fights this year. You know, whether it's my mandatory, Garcia, Haney, Tank Davis, you know, those guys at 135, that's where our goal is. And then at 140. But you know what? I guess those guys, man, I guess they know that at least there'll be a better competition than, I guess, than getting demolished by me. So at least they have a fighting chance.
They don't really say your name. I don't really hear them saying your name like they're throwing around the other guys' names necessarily.
No, yeah, of course. I mean, but why is that? I mean, because they scared. It's really what it comes down to. They scared. They don't want to mention that.
All of them? Devin, Ryan, and Tank?
All of them. They scared. They know what's up.
All right, guys. So after that, Teofimo, he was asked if he could give a message to all of these guys. What would he say? And Teo, he said, look, I know you guys are scared, but let's make these fights for the fans. He said, if you guys really think you're the best, come fight me and don't overprice yourself. And guys, see, this is why, like I said earlier, I wonder if Teo even realizes everything that he just said a week ago has been recorded. Or maybe he doesn't care when it comes to him changing what he says, because he knows the guys that are interviewing him, either they don't know because they're not following and paying attention, they're not doing their homework to research everything that Teo is saying, or they simply just don't care and they have no type of integrity. I don't know which one it is. But a good journalist, a good reporter, he would know all of the facts. The guy that you're interviewing, you should know every single thing that this man has said. If this was like a CNN type of interview, you know, a political type of interview, you can't just make up stuff as you're talking to reporters like that, because they're going to fact check. They'll mention something and play the clip of something that you said maybe 3 or even 20 years ago that completely contradicts what you're saying right now. But in the sport of boxing, it's the wild, wild west. In the sport of boxing, a lot of reporters, they don't even care if you're lying or not, as long as it benefits them as a personal boxing fan, meaning the reporter. Because when Teo said, don't overprice yourself, the reporter could have easily came out and said, but Teo, you just said a week ago that you're willing to fight Devin Haney tomorrow for $10 million when you only made $1 million to fight Lomachenko and Loma made like 3 or less than 3. You don't think that's overpricing just a little bit? You guys have to understand, real journalism is about asking the tough questions, the questions that other reporters may be afraid to ask. That is what separates you from just any ordinary reporter. So moving on, then Teofimo Lopez, he talks about his hit list, who he wants to fight this year. Now, I want you to pay attention to what he says, but really pay attention to what he says about Tank Davis so I can make my next point. Check it out.
If my mandatory doesn't work and they don't make this fight happen and it falls off, you know, our next guy is Haney. And if Haney if he overprices himself, then we're gonna try to shoot for Garcia. Because the reason why I'm not shooting for Tank is because Floyd Mayweather himself said that he's not gonna have him fight me next. So obviously that's off the radar. So why do I need to mention someone that I'm not gonna fight? You know what I mean? Yeah.
Now guys, when you listen to what Teo just said about Tank Davis, the reason why he's not mentioning his name, because Floyd already said that Tank will not be fighting Teo next. Because we already knew, or at least I've been telling you guys for the longest, that Floyd Mayweather's plan and Tank's plan always was to fight Ryan Garcia next. That way, beating Ryan Garcia will give them more leverage going into a Teofimo Lopez fight. So there's no doubt Lopez is right when he says that was Floyd Mayweather's plan. But the problem for Teo is once he says, so that's why there's no reason for me to mention Tank's name. But apparently Teo doesn't realize that he keeps saying that he wants to fight Josh Taylor or Jose Ramirez, whoever wins that fight, when we know that they're not going to be fighting Teo next because they have to fight against each other. So what Teo just said about not mentioning Tank, he should also say when it comes to Josh Taylor and Ramirez. Something else that stands out when he talks about hoping that they don't overprice themselves. Also, did you guys notice that whenever Tio is talking about fighting Josh Taylor or Jose Ramirez, he never says, I hope they don't outprice themselves. He's never said, if I'm going to fight Josh Taylor, you're going to have to give me $10 million. Why doesn't he say this for those guys, but he says it when it comes to Devin Haney? Or he says things similar when it comes to Tank Davis or even Shakur Stevenson. Moving on. So then in another interview, Tio is asked, do you want to fight Devin Haney? And Tio, he says, yes. Yes, I want to fight him. But then right after he says, yes, I want to fight him, he turns right around and then he says, but what does a Devin Haney fight do for me? Now remember, guys, in the clips I played earlier, right after the Lomachenko fight, Tio said that he was willing to fight Devin Haney next. You hear what he's saying today. I mean, it's so confusing listening to Teofimo Lopez because in one interview, he's saying that he wants to fight Devin Haney if he doesn't get his mandatory next. In another interview, he's almost saying the polar opposite. Listen to what he says for why he feels there's no reason to take a Devin Haney fight.
We go out there, we beat him, okay? I'll knock him out. I just can't stand him. So I have to. I can't go out like that. You know what I mean? Loma, he was on survival mode, and then I was going after him that last round. Anyways, moving forward, I beat him, and then what happens? What's next? Yeah, he's the WBA regular champion. I'm the super champion, right? And then next thing you know, I beat Devin. Then you're gonna be like, well, you're not undisputed yet, Teofimo, because you still gotta beat Gervonta Davis because he has a WBA belt. Yeah, but I got the. And you know what I mean? So it's like giving them what it's not valid or whatever doesn't work. I get it though. They want these fights to happen. I'm not stopping them. I'm not saying no to these fights at all. I'm just being honest here. And I'm saying in order for you to prove to me that you was even a competition or an opponent for me, you gotta show me something. They haven't shown me anything. They fighting over each other's leftovers. And I'm over here looking at another meal.
Now, let me start by saying this. He says they're fighting over each other's leftovers. But the thing is, he knows that Devin in particular wants to fight him. So why talk about who Devin is fighting when you know if it was up to Devin, he would be fighting you next? That's the reason why Tio is now saying if he doesn't fight Kambosos next, he'll go after Devin Haney as long as he doesn't overprice himself. Listen, guys, the only time it makes sense to talk about who some guy is fighting next is if that fighter is avoiding you to fight someone's leftovers. For example, when Canelo Alvarez was at 160, he decided to fight Rocky Fielding, which was Calum Smith's leftovers because Calum had already knocked out Rocky Fielding in the first round. He decided to fight Rocky Fielding instead of fighting a Jamal Charlo or a Demetrius Andrade. So they should be the ones saying, look at you over here fighting other fighters' leftovers. But you can't say that when that fighter who's fighting leftovers prefers to fight you. And when it comes to Canelo, coincidentally, the same thing can be said about what he's about to do next, who he's about to fight next. Now he's about to fight Avni Yildirim, who is coming off of a loss. Before that, he was knocked out by Chris Eubank Jr. Canelo Alvarez could be fighting David Benavidez. Because Canelo Alvarez personally called the WBC president and told him he wanted to fight Avni Yildirim for the vacant title since David Benavidez was stripped of it, Canelo could have did the same thing with David Benavidez. He could have contacted the WBC because Benavidez is the #1 contender for the WBC belt. Yildirim is ranked #2. Canelo could have easily told Mauricio, I want to fight David Benavidez for the vacant strap. But he decided to fight Yildirim. So once again, people like David Benavidez has the right to say, you're over here fighting people's leftovers when you could have fought me, someone who's undefeated, someone who is the most dangerous fighter at 168. Okay, so then there was another point that Teo was trying to make when he was trying to explain why he doesn't feel he really needs to fight a Devin Haney. And I thought it was pretty interesting because he was using the exact talking points that Max Kellerman had gave to him from ESPN. He says, look, man, so I beat Devin Haney. Let's say I beat him, I knock him out. Then they're gonna be like, oh, well, now you gotta fight Tank Davis because he's the regular WBO champion. And then you gotta fight this guy. Then you gotta fight that guy. Teo made it sound like people are trying to force him to do something that he does not want to do. Man, if I beat Devin Haney, then you guys gonna ask me to move up to heavyweight and fight Mike Tyson. Then after that, you're gonna tell me to stand in front of a bus. Then you're gonna tell me to jump off a cliff. Then you're gonna tell me to swim with sharks and wrestle lions. Man, Teo, you don't understand. You're supposed to be the takeover. You're supposed to take over all of boxing. Not just Kambosos and the winner of Josh Taylor and Ramirez. You're supposed to take over all of boxing. You're supposed to be the ones that's like, let me at him. No, I want them all. It shouldn't be the opposite where you're saying, man, you guys want me to fight him? Then you want me to fight that guy next? When does all of this end? It ends when you retire, Teo. The crazy thing is, it was Teo who said right after he beat Lomachenko, which I gave him so much credit for saying this. Teo had said, you know, people always talk about, everyone wants to be a superstar like Floyd Mayweather. But what they don't understand is you have to be pretty boy before you become Money Mayweather. Because when Floyd was pretty boy, he had to fight all of the tough fighters that no one wanted to go after, which Floyd Mayweather did. Floyd Mayweather went after all of the undefeated, young, hungry lions. So it's mind-boggling to me that Teo would go from saying that right after the Lomachenko fight to, a couple months or whatever later. Now he's saying, oh, if I fight Devin, then you're gonna ask me to fight Tank. Then I gotta fight Tyson, etc., etc. Teo is making it sound like Tank and Devin are the Mike Tysons, are the buses you have to stand in front of. They are the cliffs that you may have to jump off. That's how he's making it sound. And Teo keeps saying that he's the one with all of the titles. So what's the point of having all the titles if you're not willing to fight all of the best competition? What's the point of holding the belts? What, are you just gonna hold the belts hostage? You often hear champions say, it's harder to keep the belts than it is to win the belts. The reason why a lot of champions say that is because they're preparing themselves to defend those titles against the hungriest competition available. Those young, undefeated lions and those sharks that are smelling blood in the water. I'm telling you, man, it's so bizarre because it is some serious work keeping up with Teofimo as he's doing these interviews. I mean, his interviews can really get you dizzy. I mean, you got to turn left, right, up and down, all over the place just to keep up with what the TOs are saying. I mean, when it comes to these interviews right now that we're talking about, these recent interviews, I'm not even talking about the ones that he did the week before or a couple weeks before. Just these recent interviews. 1 minute he says, these fighters, they don't deserve to fight me. The next minute he says he wants these fights next. Matter of fact, the clip that I just played for you guys, where he says, you know, if I fight him, then I gotta fight him. Then you guys gonna ask me to fight him. After he said that, he still said, but listen, the fights are gonna happen. You know, they're gonna happen when they happen, but the fights are going to happen. We're gonna make these fights happen some kind of way. He talked about the money and all that kind of stuff, but he's just all over the place. I always tell you guys, the most dangerous thing, the most dangerous weapon in the world is a microphone and a camera. Why? Because they can work for you or they can work against you. Fortunately for me, a microphone has always worked for me, because I love the fact that I can always go back and play something that I've already said before. Everything that I say has been documented. So when it comes to Teofimo Lopez, you guys can go back to videos I made before the Lomachenko fight and right after the Lomachenko fight. I told you everything that's coming to fruition. I pretty much told you it was going to happen, but where I was wrong is I told you old media is going to try to protect Teofimo Lopez from all of the dangerous black fighters. I told you guys this was going to happen. That's exactly what happened. But I told you guys, and this is where I was wrong, I said, but they don't understand. Teofimo is from Brooklyn. Teofimo, he's the type of person that's going to be like, nah, I don't want to be protected. I want all of the smoke. He's going to go after all of these guys. That's what I said in my videos, guys. So you can never say that I was just personally going after Teofimo Lopez. I actually told you guys that he was going to go after these fighters. And now look at what Teofimo Lopez is saying. He made me look like a fool. I mean, why would you sit over here and say, I'm going to fight these guys this year as long as they don't overprice themselves, and you just said a week ago you want $10 million to fight Devin Haney? I mean, what is really going on with this team? So I truly believe eventually there's going to be a time where Teo, he will end up fighting a Gervonta or a Devin Haney. One of the reasons I believe he may end up fighting a Gervonta Tank Davis is because if Gervonta gets Ryan in the ring, and if Gervonta can beat Ryan, which is no guarantee, but if he beats Ryan, that's going to put an enormous amount of pressure on Teo to fight Tank. I mean, there's already a whole lot of pressure on him now, but it's going to be even more if Gervonta can beat Oscar De La Hoya's new golden boy, Ryan Garcia. Now, if Ryan Garcia beats Gervonta Tank Davis, that would be right up Teo's alley, because Teo never had a problem fighting Ryan Garcia. There's never been any $10 million stipulations. There's never been any, you have to wait 3 to 5 years to fight me. There's never been any, well, if I fight Ryan Garcia next, then you guys gonna ask me to fight this guy. Then you're gonna ask me to fight that guy. And the funny thing about that is he was saying, you guys gonna ask me to fight Tank because he has this belt. You're gonna ask me to fight this guy because he has that belt. But Ryan Garcia, meanwhile, has no belts at all. We know what time it is. Trust me, guys. The walls are closing in when it comes to Teofimo Lopez. And mainly, like Teo always says, and like a lot of fighters always say, you know, the only person that can beat me is myself. And right now, Teo is definitely beating himself when it comes to him doing interviews, when it comes to the contradictions. Every time this man Teo steps in front of a microphone, it backfires. It completely backfires. And that is what's creating all of the pressure on him to take these fights. Once again, I'll close out with saying that Teo is telling us that he does want to fight Devin Haney. He does want to fight Tank. He wants to fight these guys next year as long as they don't overprice themselves. Let's see what he decides to do this year. That's all I got for now, guys. I'm on to the next one. Listen, I'm telling you guys right now, in the world that we live in today, one of the most important things in life to have is a good lawyer. And I can vouch for this one right here, because this brother is my personal lawyer. So if you need any type of legal representation, if you need legal advice, if you're having problems on YouTube, on your regular job, or whatever it is, contact lawyer, mediator, and business consultant Issa Israel's law firm. I've been knowing this man for a while, and he has been a true blessing to me. I'm telling you, he's affordable, he will work with you, but most importantly, he's not gonna just treat you like a customer. He will have your best interest. So to get in contact with him, go to iilawfirm.com or consultsglobal.com. Fellas, I've got some great news for you. If you've lost your hair or have a receding hairline, the time has come when you can finally get your hairline back through a process called scalp micropigmentation. So here's how it works. It's a hair tattoo that replicates the look of your hair follicles when you have fully shaved it down. Make sure you go ahead and contact my man Scalp Carolinas on Instagram. All right, now check this out, guys. If you're looking to repair eczema scars, burns and bruises, dark spots and blemishes, then this right here is the perfect product for you guys. It's called Elo de Key Face and Body Oil. Athletes and top-ranking boxers, they're also using it after training to reduce swelling, inflammation, and to ease the pain. So get yours today. Go to elodekey.com, like them on Facebook, and follow them on Instagram.